Hello, everybody, and welcome to another wonderful episode of Sphere of Being, which is all about caring for those who care for others. Because especially when, we put a lot into maybe our teams at work, or perhaps we have children. There could be an elderly relative or a loved one that we're looking after, as well as everything else that we have to do. And sometimes it's just nice to have a little bit of me time, a little bit of a relax and a chill, so that we can put fuel in our own tanks for once and keep ourselves optimized, so that we can do our job of caring for those that we love and that we have affinity with. So today I'm joined by the wonderful Brooke Bownes, and she is from Brooke Bownes Coaching, also known as the Breakthrough Queen. Breaking through those barriers, those blocks, those things which perhaps we don't even realize are there, but could be holding us back. So Brooke, thank you. Thank you for being a special guest today.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's a real pleasure. And Brooke, what I'd love to do to start with is if you could let us know a little about you, and maybe your journey into taking you into what you do now.
Okay, yeah. I'm a coach and a therapist, and as you said, I help people to break through those barriers, those their belief systems that are holding them back. We all get these little voices in our head saying, "Oh, I don't think we can do that. What will people think? I'm not good enough to do that." And what I help people to do is to change their belief system so they can go and do the things that they want to do because they know that they're good enough. And I never ever tell my clients that I will teach them to be 100% confident, but what I help them to do is to be confident that regardless of whether things work out or they don't, that they're going to be okay after it, at the end of it. So, and the reason I'm so passionate about that is because my belief system was atrocious. I didn't think I was good enough. I didn't think anybody would love me. I didn't think that I was important. I didn't think I was worthy of anything. And this came from growing up with a narcissistic mother who constantly told me I was useless, worthless, nobody would ever love me, that I was ugly. So, as we all know, that from a young age, our belief systems are formed because we're like little sponges. And I grew up believing that nobody would ever love me. People wouldn't want to listen to me, that I wasn't worthy to have anything. I didn't deserve to have anything. And it held me back. I was a very insecure, very lacked lots of confidence as a child, and realized, okay, if I need to change, that's what I need to do, because it's people around me that are affecting me. I need to sort of think about how I actually want to believe about myself. So I started on my journey. I first started working on how to work on my mindset, but I got to that stage where I thought, okay, right, I can feel this fear that I'm not good enough and that I can't do it, but I'm going to push through and do it. And that still didn't feel right and set with me. But then I realized that actually it's how my inner child felt and how I felt inside my body. So when I got that sorted out and realized actually, when you've got these fear things come up, when you process them and deal with them, you can then go on to do the things you want to do and enjoy doing them. Yes, we're all going to have that natural bit of like butterflies in our stomachs when we try something new, but I will have a go at doing most things now, and nothing will hold me back, especially a fear of thinking I'm not good enough or I'm not worthy. So that's what I'm so passionate about helping other people about, so they feel good about themselves, so they can achieve whatever they want to achieve, whether it's to be better in the job they're at, whether it's to be heard at home, or whether it's to take that next promotion or start that business, whatever it is, however they want to shine in the world, get them shining, because I believe that we're all diamonds, but we're just buried under other people's beliefs and thoughts and processes, that I help people to like sort of pull back those layers to actually reveal that beautiful diamond that we already are. And it's not about changing and being somebody different. It's actually unlearning all those things and being the person we were meant to be in the first place. So I could go on for hours, as you can probably tell, but I won't, because I'm very, very passionate about this, because I know how it feels to be in that camp of having no confidence, self-doubt, to now going to having the confidence to know it's not always going to work out, but I'm going to be okay anyway, and not having that self-doubt about myself. So I've got that inner confidence and that inner peace, knowing that I'm okay.
Thank you, Brooke, and thank you for not at all. It's all these episodes that I do with our guests. is so that you can bring out the uniqueness of what you do for people and how that can transform lives. And it sounds like you do it in a very gentle and holistic way, because I make the point not to draw attention to myself in any way normally, but I was an abuse and trauma survivor from childhood. It used to define me. It doesn't anymore. It makes me the wonderful person that actually I am, and to celebrate that. And I too had a narcissistic mother who told me almost verbatim what you were told. And as a small child, you only have that as your point of belief. So you believe what these people are saying to you. And despite my best efforts, it's ruined relationships, both at work and my personal level for me. It completely destroyed the relationship with my mother. Wasn't something that I was ever able to rectify. I have forgiven, but what she did was wrong. I do understand that. I haven't pardoned it. I have forgiven her, though, from the mental illness that she suffered. She could have made different choices, though, and she chose not to. So that was up to her. That was her journey. What would you say to those people who might be listening who want to get different results but seem to be going down similar patterns and pathways and getting the results that they don't want? What would you say to them?
It's actually realizing and first of all being aware of where they are right now, and the fact that they want to change is a good start, because some people aren't aware of what they're doing. And it's thinking about what you're saying to yourself and who your environment is hanging around as well, because if you're with people that are constantly saying, oh no, you shouldn't do that, you know, that's not, you know, good for you, rather than having somebody encourage you, say, yeah, well, try it, let's see what happens. And it's think about your own self-talk. What do you say to yourself when you wake up first thing in the morning? What do you say to yourself during the day? What do you say to yourself as you're going to sleep at night? Because this self-talk can really have a big impact on you. Like I talked about, I wrote a book and I talked about one of my clients in there. It obviously names were changed for confidentiality. And they were struggling, saying, everything's hard. I'm like, well, tell me about it. And I counted how many times she said the word, it's really hard, it's really hard, in the story when she was telling me about it. And I asked her afterwards, how many times do you think you use the word hard? And she laughed. She said, I'd probably say a couple, but because you've actually asked me that, probably more than that. And I said, yeah, it was 15 times, I think it was, or the amount it was. So I didn't realize I was. And what we're doing is we're keeping that programming going of what happened when we were children, because even though it's not comfortable, it's familiar. And we tend to go back to what's familiar. So it's thinking about, okay, it's going to feel a bit strange to say something slightly different. Like I can remember that I was constantly told I was ugly as a child. So if anybody ever said, oh, you're really pretty, I'm like, no, I'm not, I'm ugly. It was like, boom, straight back. And then I got with a coach who said, just sit in front of the mirror and say you're beautiful. I'm like, oh, I'll say that. That's not really weird. And I sat there and I've never ever had a stutter before. And I went, and all I could hear in my head was like, no, you're not, you're ugly. No, you're not, you're ugly. And it's because I was constantly hearing that I'm ugly, I'm ugly. So it's thinking about how we talk to ourselves and how we treat ourselves. And I often say to my clients, would you say to yourself what you're saying to yourself to your best friend or to a child? And I go, no, of course I wouldn't. I'm like, okay, so then why are you saying it to yourself? Well, because it's only me, because I don't feel I'm worthy, I don't deserve anything different. But it's like thinking, okay, right, how can I take that tiny step to start feeling worthy about doing something? Where have I been worthy in my past before? Look at the evidence and start collecting it so we can start to act and feel differently about ourselves, because it's that where it all starts from. Because yeah, it's nice to get validation from other people, but actually when we feel validated in ourselves, that's when the true changes start to happen.
Wow, that's really powerful. And there were a couple of things there. One of the things I'd like you to go into greater detail with is this part about validation. How can somebody who hasn't ever processed the fact of how wonderful they are and go into that self-narrative talk of I'm worthless, I don't deserve, people like me don't have things like that. How can we give ourselves that validation rather than seeking it from outside?
That's working on your inner child, because as I sort of work with part systems, as they're called, your inner child, how I liken it to, is a bit like a puppeteer, like the puppet master, and we're the puppet. When the inner child's happy, you can go off and do whatever you want to do. But when your inner child isn't happy, she or he will pull those strings back and stop you doing it. Like, I've been driving for years. So if somebody says, "Can you just jump in the car?" And yeah, no problem. But I haven't ever flown an airplane. So if somebody said to me, "Just jump in that airplane and fly these people across to Spain or wherever," I don't, whoa, no. It's like my inner child, like, nope, we don't know how to do that. That's quite scary thought. So it's thinking about, and I know there's two extremes things, but to bring that point home, when we're happy to do things, it's because our inner child feels safe and secure to do them. But when we kind of get stopped to do something, it's because our inner child, it doesn't feel safe and secure. So it's connecting to that inner child. And I do in my sessions with my clients something called inner child reprogramming, where I get them to connect to their inner child and chat to their inner child and find out what's stopping their inner child, how their inner child is feeling. So you can start to actually realize, oh, actually, it's not me as an adult, it's my inner child that's scared and stopping me from doing stuff. Because often people will come to me and say, I'm stuck, and if I go to do something, I feel like I'm literally being like held back. And it's the idea is that your inner child is kind of pulling you back on those strings. So it's thinking, okay, how can I actually think about what would I do to reassure a young child if they were sat beside me who was scared? So reassure that young child, reassure yourself as your inner child, and then you can start to validate yourself and move forward in the tiny steps that you take. So do something. So it's like, if you've never driven a car before, the first tiny step you take is to go and sit in the car and feel comfortable to be sat in the driver's seat. Because if you've never driven a car before, sitting in the passenger seat to the driver's seat is a completely different experience. And it's breaking it down into little small doable chunks that, yeah, you may feel a bit of a churning in your belly and a bit of butterflies, but actually, yeah, I think I've got this, I can handle this, yeah, we can do this. And I always think about as well the self-talk. I'm not either going to succeed or fail, I'm either going to succeed or I'm going to learn. Now, when we say that to ourselves, our mind's like, okay, that's not a 50-50 win or lose. That's actually a 50-50 win or win, because I'll either succeed, which is great, but actually, if I don't succeed, I'm going to learn from it, which is going to help me to grow even more. So that's also a win. So when we can think like that way, okay, what can I learn from it? And I love making mistakes now, because the more mistakes I make, the more I can talk about it to my clients, and it puts them at ease as well. So I actually love making mistakes now. But if you'd have asked me 15, 20 years ago, I'd be horrified at the thought of making a mistake, because what would people think of me if I make a mistake? But I own it now and think, okay, what can I learn from it, and what can I teach other people about what I've learned?
This is very interesting, thinking about failure as a learning opportunity, because I listened to Alex Hormozy. He's the guy who is a billionaire. He's about mid-30s. He had a business called Gym Launch, and is just one of the most incredible people I think I've seen on social media, on podcasts. I love podcasts, and so much so I sit on my own. I'm an advocate of them. But what he's saying is doing things quickly to fail so that you can learn. And so it's just like, and he also says investing in your own self, in programs and things like that, is to learn from others' failures quickly.
Yeah,
So you
absolutely.
don't have to fail yourself.
Yeah.
And it's learning all those things that others learned the hard way, so that you don't have to go the hard way. And the hard way is it didn't go right. So what do we do about
Yeah.
it? Yeah,
Like with
very
me,
interesting.
it's took me 57 years to get to where I am today, but I can help people get to where they want to get a lot quicker than that, because they can learn from what I did, what worked for me, and what didn't work for me. And I can, like, obviously change it to suit what they're working through as well. So all the information I've gathered throughout the years, the failures I've had, the mistakes I've learned from, it's all wrapped up in my sessions to help people. So it's it's that wonderful thing that you can learn from everybody else's failures in a lot shorter time, as you say.
That is really valuable, and thank you, because it's just resonated with me again. Perhaps there's something pushing me towards learning from others' learnings rather than having to do it the hard way and learn from my own. One of the things also that I'd like you to delve into is you're talking about the inner child. Now, I understand what that is. Could you explain a little bit more, though, for people who might not have really delved deep, or as like, why would I want to go there? What would benefit with me to actually sit with little me? And it can sound a bit like, not woohoo, but a bit like, doesn't really? Could you go into a little bit of more detail about the inner child and what that means?
Yeah, because people often talk about, oh, there's a part of me wants to do this, but there's a part of me that not, and this your head in your body kind of fighting because logically that you've got the qualifications, the talent, or whatever to do things, but your body is remembering things from your childhood. Like, oh my goodness, if that happens, then we're going to get into trouble because our body, until we process and deal with the inner child wounds, it's going to keep reverting back to when we were younger. Like, for instance, when I first started my coaching business, my coach said to me, do a Facebook Live on your personal profile. That really, really helped. And I suddenly went, oh my goodness. And I was like, and they said, what's well, and I thought, why is that? Why did I react like that? But as I've come to find out, working through my trauma as a child, if I spoke out, I got into trouble. So logically, I knew I could do a Facebook Live. I can talk, as you can see here, I love to talk, not a problem. So why couldn't I do a Facebook Live? And I procrastinated for months over that. I did everything I could possibly do, even to the point of, the kitchen door that's always a little bit messy with the odd pen cap and the paper clip. I tidied that out because that seemed suddenly more important. But like I said, I work it in parts. And what happens is we have these parts come out, like procrastination is a part, like sadness, anger, depression, happiness, joy. Those parts show up a bit like a protector to protect your inner child when your inner child is either feeling not worthy, lovable, good enough, or important. Now, my inner child, all four of those was like kind of like being like poked at. The thought of, if I show my face, somebody's going to shout at me. Now, logically, I knew nobody was going to shout at me because my mother isn't on social media on my platform. So who else is going to shout at me? But my body was like going straight back to that little 6-year-old that used to get into trouble. So what I do is to work with the people when they suddenly feel, oh, can't do that. The minute you go, oh, it sends a signal to your subconscious mind to say, uh-oh, danger. And our subconscious mind is only job is to keep us alive and to keep us safe. So the minute we even take a little short intake of breath, it's looking for the danger and think, okay, well, that's not safe to do, even though logically we know to sit in front of a camera in our office, in our homes, we are completely safe to talk to the camera. But because our body's gone, it's like, no, okay, that's not safe. We're not doing that. We're not playing that game. So it's like thinking about, okay, how does my body react to something when somebody says to do something? Like going back to like mentioning driving a car or flying an airplane, my body would instantly go, I'm not going to fly an airplane. But now I think, okay, I'll have a go. As long as I've got somebody sat beside me who could teach me how to fly, I would like to learn to fly an airplane. I wouldn't be scared of that now, but I need to learn how to do it first, logically. And I would go through the logical steps because my body hasn't kind of been triggered and sent a signal to my subconscious mind to say, no, you can't do that. And like, okay, right, I'll learn to do it and then I'll take the plane flight. So it's really thinking about how you react and dealing with that. So our inner child controls us a lot more than we think about. Like if you hear two people arguing and they go, well, you said that and you said that and you said, it's not the two adults arguing, it's their two inner child that are desperately wanting to be seen and heard and validated, that are trying to like argue the case for them, really. Because if you look at it, it's like they sound like two children in a playground, because they're both being triggered and they're both trying to be validated and be seen and heard. So it's, you can start to think to yourself, okay, right, yes, I acted that way. Like if we suddenly react some way to something irrational and think, why did I react that way? It's because of something that's happened in your past has created that reaction. Because we're not born with these beliefs. We actually learn these beliefs as we grow up. And the great thing about that is because we learned them along the way, we can also unlearn them and learn new beliefs that will help us to move us forward. So that's an exciting part of it, that we can learn the new beliefs.
That's amazing. Gosh, this is really valuable. And I'm going ding, 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 because each time you say something, I'm like, yeah, 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 I get it, I get it, I get it. Um, how can you help people to understand how the body, because I've been guilty of going up into my head and thinking it's my mind, but you're talking a lot about the body
Mm.
and how the body shows us the reaction. How can we be present in our minds, not to just overlook this? Because I can be guilty of, the body can have a reaction and I won't realize for about 48 hours. And I go, oh, right, that's why I did that the other day. How can you help us identify it when it's happening? Because a lot of this for me was like subconscious. I wouldn't be aware of that's what's going on. How can we be more mindful of how the body's reacting?
It's actually being really, really present and noticing at the time what's happening and being aware of what's going on, because we do tend to just like keep, we just, okay, on to the next thing, on to the next thing,
Mm,
on to the next thing. But actually, if we're really, really present and somebody says something, now we'll use an example of food. I love strawberries. If somebody says to me, oh, have some strawberries, I will go to that strawberry, no issue whatsoever. If somebody says to me, eat that bowl of mushrooms, ooh, there would be an instant little reaction because I don't like mushrooms. It's like, okay, so it's just an example that's sort of very generic, but it's noticing my body. Ooh, ooh, my body went first, and then I was like, no, I don't want to do that. So it's noticing how a little, any tiny little movement in your body that doesn't feel quite comfortable, because our mind can play tricks on us, but our gut never lies. So it's tuning more into your body, because your body knows what's really good for us, but because we've like got so used to over the years not listening to our intuition and tuning into ourselves. Because as children, when we think something's not right, adults will say, oh yeah, it's right, I said so. So we start squishing down our own gut instinct and not listening. So it's like relearning to listen to your body again. And it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I didn't think that was quite right, but I went with it anyway. And how many times have you heard people saying, you said, oh, I wish I'd have listened to my gut instinct. That's your body saying, no, that's not a good thing to do. It might be like, I met somebody once and the hairs on the back of my neck went up, and the person hadn't opened their mouth, they hadn't spoken to me. I'd never sort of had any dealings with them whatsoever. Thought, okay, just kind of just be wary here. And they suddenly want to be really, really friendly, really, really quickly. And that was like, okay, right. And come to find out that they weren't a very nice person. It's like, but because I was tuned in at the time and noticed that the hairs on the back of my neck kind of like standing up, it was like I made sure I didn't fall for all their like charisma and their patter that most people, a lot of people would have fell for. So it is really thinking about, just notice those little tiny things that can happen, rather than being busy thinking, okay, well, I'll do this and then get on to the next thing. Just stop and reflect back as well sometimes. Because like with you, if you'd have stopped and reflected when you've done something rather than waiting like 48 hours, you'd think, okay, right, now next time when that happens, I will be more aware and notice it even sooner. So you could, it's like training your muscles to like work out at the gym. It's like training your own self to like listen to your gut instinct.
very interesting. One of the things I'd like to do is, because we're talking about caring for those who care for others, when we're in a position where we have team members that we perhaps are overseeing or that we have a level of leadership with, often we can see in others what we can't see in ourselves. And we might have somebody that, in all fairness, rubs us up the wrong way.
Yeah.
And we can't put a finger on why, but we know that we get triggered by them. How much can we do to reflect inwardly to see if it's something that we need to learn from that perspective, rather than making a judgment that we just don't like that person or that person is wrong and their thought processes aren't right? How can we look to in ourselves, and what do we need to do before we project out onto somebody else?
Yeah, that's a really good question. First of all, it's like looking at thinking, okay, what is it that's triggered me off? Is it a smell? Because smells are so powerful. Like if I smell Chanel number 5, I'm not so bad now, but that's what my mum used to wear. It's like, oh, okay, that person I don't trust. Without thinking about it, my subconscious is like, okay, they're not trustworthy because that smell. So it's like, okay, so is it a smell? Is it a certain phrase that they say? You know, as we've grown up, we have mothers and fathers that say certain phrases, and if you hear somebody else saying it and you've not got a good relationship, it might be, okay, that might be the thing that's triggered them off. But what I like to get people to think about is when you get triggered by something, instead of thinking, oh my God, that's really terrible, get curious, lean into it, and actually think, okay, where's that coming from? Where's that story coming from? What belief system am I running for that to actually cause an issue with me? And then you can start to think about that and work backwards to it. It may be a certain color that somebody's wearing or a certain item of clothing. It could be their mannerism. It could be remind you of something or somebody that can trigger you off. So it could be a lot of different things, but it's getting curious to think, okay, where did I feel that feeling? And where's that feeling come from? Where's that belief come from? So it's thinking about all those sorts of things. And it's taking that time to be present and to be aware of it and thinking, okay, it's not that person, but it's something about that person's either mannerisms, what they're wearing, their smell, what they're saying, that can actually, cause you to react that way. And the same in the other way, like if I smell anybody who wears Old Spice, not people many wear it, but my dad used to wear it, like, oh my goodness, it's like you smell just like my dad. And I'll chat to that person because to me they're trustworthy, because of that smell. So it's really thinking about how you react to different things. But I'm also now aware, because of all the work I've done, yeah, he may smell like my dad, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's trustworthy. But I would at one point have gone and completely trusted that person because my dad and me were really close. So it's being very, very aware of how you react, and then getting curious as to why you reacted that way. What belief system is it causing you to react that way?
I think there could be a lot of arguments that we can avoid, not through the fact that we don't want to have difficult conversations, but the fact that actually what triggers us, we can start to realize where we come from with it. And throughout the conversations I've had recently, the word curious is coming quite a lot. That curiosity to find out, to inquire, to analyze, to get to the root cause. Curiosity seems to be a very powerful tool that we can use
Mm.
in our inquiring armory to really diffuse and maybe to dissolve some long held beliefs about others, about certain, as you say, language can be very important, or a tone. I know one of the things that I can't bear and I go to pieces with still to this day is if somebody shouts at me. I find that it is an abusive thing to do, to shout at somebody, but my father was a bully and a shouter. My
Mm.
mother was a manipulator, and I can't bear to feel that I'm ever being manipulated into something. shouting element, if somebody shouts at me still to this day, I can feel my insides just rumbling.
Yeah.
And I've obviously taken it in a way as an adult, which is very much from my inner child.
Yeah.
Affects me very, very deeply. And one of the boundaries that I set, and I think boundaries can be really important as well when we know our likes, our dislikes, our preferences for what the reasons are. And we should celebrate them because they're what makes us us. And we shouldn't trying to be, sort of, oh, I'm wrong in thinking that necessarily. But I have to put boundaries in all my relationships, work, personal, is that I can't tolerate any form of raised voice and shouting because it really does deeply, deeply affect me. And I think when people know that that's something which is not acceptable to me, and I can quite honestly say it's because it's my childhood experience, I don't tolerate shouting because it affects me very badly, and I'd appreciate it if you never raised your voice to me. And if you did, understand what the reaction might be from me.
Yeah.
It puts things on a footing which people go, oh, right. Oh, I don't like shouting either. Or, I understand where, oh, thank you for letting me know that. Because would you say, as well, in our healing and our development and growing and breaking through, that if we can actually say, look, I'm not very good in these situations.
Yeah.
Does that help, do you think, to come out with that? Would you ever say that's a bit of a weakness, or what would you
Absolutely not.
say?
Actually, I think it's a strength to say, I don't like X, Y, and Z because of X, Y, and Z reason. You could say I'm working through it, but at the moment, that's how I feel at the moment. And the curiosity thing is about how I work with people is a really simple thing and a very good visual thing. If you can imagine that my hand is like your brain, when this is like your prefrontal cortex, your logical thinking part of your brain. And when we're having a nice conversation, both of us are in our prefrontal cortex, quite happy and relaxed. When we're triggered, we kind of flip our lid. So it reveals our amygdala, which is our fight, flight, and freeze. So we react. Like you said, if you become curious, instead of reacting back, you can take a step back and think, oh, I wonder why that person's reacting like that rather than responding. And it gives you that breathing space because people will react because of their experiences from their world. Like somebody may react to a spider and somebody else will go, oh yeah, it's a spider. Somebody else will be up on the chair like, oh my God, it's a spider. So it's like thinking, okay, getting curious, why is that person reacting that way? Why is that person doing that? Or why is that person saying that? And if you can let somebody know, okay, I'll do this because when I was a child, my brother put a spider down my back and I've been terrified of them ever since. So if there was ever a spider around and I know somebody's terrified of them, I will move that spider out the way as quickly as I can because you don't want to cause any more trauma to that person, and you want to like help them as much as you can. So yeah, it's really good to be open and to, some people say it's being really, really vulnerable. But if you can be open and have those honest conversations saying this is just, what I would prefer you didn't shout and I prefer that you didn't scream in my face. If you've got to say something, let's have a conversation rather than screaming about it or whatever it is that you want to use as an
Mm,
example.
yeah, it's gosh, all those times where I could have avoided conflict, and yet for whatever reason I didn't speak from the heart about me,
Yeah. And like I
or
said,
that.
people say,
Mm,
thank you. I actually feel the same way. I don't like people shouting either. Thank you for sharing it with me. They appreciate it because then they don't have to try and work out how you are and what you're feeling. They know how you're feeling.
very interesting. Brooke, I can't believe how the time has gone. We have literally, I could speak with you for hours and hours, and I'm sure you will be back because I'm sure everybody's absolutely
Thank you.
intrigued into what you're saying. Thank you. We have just a little time now. Can you let people know how to get hold of you? Because I, for one, will be like on the phone immediately.
Yeah, they can contact me at brooke@brookebownes.com. and that's BROOKE, then BOWNES.com, or they can message me on Facebook Messenger, on LinkedIn, or on Instagram, all those socials. So if they want to contact me anyway, and I do offer a complimentary 20-minute call to anybody if they've been sort of like intrigued about anything we've talked about today. Send me an email, and I can send you my calendar link, and they can book in a call.
Oh, that's wonderful. And all the details will be on the show notes as well. So, we can all get hold of you, etc. But Brooke, it has been an absolute privilege to listen to your wisdom. And I know that comes from the heart. And one of the things is you've been there yourself.
Yeah.
You understand. You're coming from a position of being amongst those that you're coaching. And my recommendation to anybody is the teacher who's been through the experience can add so much wisdom and insight. Everybody's different, but sometimes there's a commonality that can bind us through having difficult issues. So I thank you for sharing and being so vulnerable with us as well. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for your time. And everybody, thanks so much for listening. We'll be back again soon. And if you've liked what you've seen, please do subscribe, join our tribe. We're very supportive. You're never alone. And it was wonderful to have you with us. So thanks very much indeed, and see you again soon.
Thank you. Bye.